The parking lot was packed. A long line stretched outside the Payday Loan Center, a neon Cash Today sign flickering above the door like a cruel joke. A man in his early 40s stood near the entrance, his fingers drumming against his phone. His car, a 10-year-old sedan with a cracked bumper, idled in the background, running on fumes just like his bank account. Inside, a young woman clutched a check with both hands, her knuckles white. She had just finished a 12-hour shift at a job that barely paid enough to cover rent. Her eyes darted toward the loan officer, waiting for the verdict. Approval meant another 2 weeks of breathing room. Denial meant eviction. Just a few miles away, in a different part of town, the air smelled different. No flickering neon signs here. Instead, the sound of a golf ball dropping into the cup echoed across a manicured green. A man, same age as the one in the Payday Loan line, leaned on his putter, laughing with his business partner. He wasn't worried about rent. His money worked while he slept. Two people, same country, same economy. One fights to survive, the other plays to win. Most would say the difference is luck or privilege or the economy, but that's not the truth. The truth is far more uncomfortable, because the real reason most people never get rich is something they refuse to see. The factory floor was alive with the rhythm of industry. Machines humming, conveyor belts whirring, the sharp hiss of steam escaping from unseen pipes. The air was thick with the smell of hot metal and sweat. Frank had been here for 26 years. Same boots, same lunch break, same promise that never seemed to come true. Work hard and you'll be rewarded. That's what his father told him when he first walked through these doors at 18. Back then, the world made sense. His dad had worked one job his entire life, bought a house, raised a family, and retired with a pension. Work hard, show up, stay loyal. That was the formula. Frank believed in it, just like millions of others. But belief didn't change reality. Because Frank wasn't his father. His father's factory had unions, guaranteed pensions, and wages that grew with the cost of living. Frank's factory had layoffs, temp workers, and whispers about automation replacing them all. Overtime kept the lights on at home, but barely. His knees ached, his back stiffened, but the paycheck never seemed to stretch far enough. Each year he worked harder. Each year he fell further behind. Meanwhile, across town, another man, same age, same city, woke up without an alarm. He checked his phone, scrolled through his investments, and sipped coffee from a kitchen that overlooked the skyline. His name was Derek, and he hadn't punched a clock in years. He wasn't any smarter than Frank. He didn't work longer hours, but he understood something that Frank never had. Hard work is only valuable when it's applied to the right things. This idea wasn't always so radical. For most of history, labor was survival. The farmer who toiled from dawn till dusk had food. The blacksmith who forged iron had tools to sell. But then came the Industrial Revolution. Machines replaced hands, assembly lines replaced craftsmen, and a new idea took hold. If you work hard enough, you'll climb the ladder. It seemed true at the time. Factories needed workers, corporations needed managers, and for a while a diligent employee could carve out a decent life. But systems evolve. The economy shifted. The rules changed. Frank never saw it happen. He believed the same promise his father did. He thought loyalty mattered. He thought grinding out 60-hour weeks would lead to something greater. Derek saw the world differently. While Frank traded time for money, Derek learned how to make money work for him. While Frank poured his energy into overtime shifts, Derek poured his energy into leverage. Stocks, real estate, businesses that generated cash even when he wasn't working. Frank worked hard. Derek worked smart. One built wealth, the other built exhaustion. The grocery store checkout line was moving slowly. 2 carts ahead, an older woman shuffled through a handful of crumpled bills, her fingers trembling as she counted. The cashier's eyes darted to the growing line, but the woman was stuck in the numbers. Subtracting, second-guessing, checking again. A beep. The total flashed on the screen. Too high. She sighed, pulling out a loaf of bread and a bag of apples. The cashier set them aside. The woman nodded. It was a silent understanding. 2 aisles over, a man in a tailored jacket walked briskly past the checkout lanes, pushing nothing but a sleek black cart. No hesitation, no mental math, just a swift tap of his card. He barely glanced at the total. To him, money wasn't something to stretch, it was something to use. 2 people, 2 realities. But the real difference wasn't in their wallets, it was in their minds. The woman saw money as scarce, fragile, something to be preserved. Every dollar spent was a dollar gone forever. Her decisions weren't about growth, they were about survival. She bought what was cheap, not what was valuable. She avoided risk, not because she was cautious, but because she believed risk was only for people who could afford to fail. The man thought differently. Money was a tool, something to multiply, to invest, to put to work. He wasn't reckless, far from it, but he understood that playing it safe is the fastest way to stay broke. This wasn't about intelligence. It wasn't about luck. It was about belief. Because here's the truth most people never realize. The way you see money determines how money moves in your life. Jason learned this the hard way. He grew up hearing the same things most people do. Save every penny. Never take risks. Stick to what's safe. His parents never had much, but they made sure the bills were paid. His mother worked nights, his father worked weekends. They were careful, responsible, always a step ahead of disaster, but never ahead of life. So Jason did what they taught him. He played it safe. At 25, he got a steady job with decent pay. At 30, he had a little saved. Not much, but enough to feel responsible. By 35, his life looked exactly the same job, the same slow climb, the same small savings account. He had security, but no way forward. Then came the layoffs. One morning, an email landed in his inbox. His department was shutting down. Severance check. Good luck. Goodbye. For the first time in his life, security was gone. And that's when Jason realized something terrifying. Playing it safe had never been safe at all. That's the trap, the comfort trap. Most people live like Jason. Not because they want to, but because they're afraid not to. They choose certainty over opportunity. They take the lowest risk path, thinking it's the smart choice. But in reality, avoiding risk is the most dangerous decision of all. Because while Jason spent his best years securing a paycheck, someone else was using those same years to build something greater, someone who saw money differently. The wealthy don't chase security. They create systems that generate security. They take calculated risks, not because they don't fear failure, but because they fear never moving forward. Jason never saw it. He was too busy protecting what little he had instead of building something more. The bell rang and a sea of students poured into the hallway, backpacks slung over shoulders, laughter and chatter bouncing off the cinder block walls. Inside room 204, the blackboard was covered in equations, X's and Y's tangled together in a puzzle no one would ever need to solve again. A tired teacher straightened his tie and pointed to a fraction problem at the top of the board. "All right, class, let's go over this one more time." In the back row, Elijah sat slumped in his chair, his sneaker tapping against the tile floor. He wasn't thinking about equations. He was thinking about the notice his mum got last night, a rent increase she couldn't afford, thinking about the groceries she had to put back at checkout, thinking about the lights flickering when she tried to turn them on that morning. He knew exactly how much their rent was, knew how much they needed to survive. But no one in this room was going to teach him how to make money. Instead, he'd learn about mitochondria, the War of 1812, and geometric proofs. He'd memorize dates, take standardized tests, and write essays about books he didn't care about. But he wouldn't learn how credit cards worked. He wouldn't learn how to invest. He wouldn't be taught how money actually moved in the real world. Because schools weren't designed to teach wealth. They were designed to produce workers. In another classroom across town, a different teacher was giving a different lesson, one that had been repeated for generations. Go to college, get a good job, work hard, and you'll be successful. The students nodded. They trusted the process. They had been raised on it. So they filled out applications, took out loans, and stepped into the next phase of their lives carrying a financial burden they barely understood. Because no one told them the truth. No one explained that college wasn't an investment, it was a business. No one warned them that student loans weren't like other debt. that they couldn't be erased in bankruptcy, that they would linger for decades, that they would shape every financial decision they made for the rest of their lives. Elijah's older sister, Maya, learned this the hard way. She followed the blueprint just like she was supposed to. She got into college, signed the paperwork, took out the loans. She graduated 4 years later with a degree and a mountain of debt, the kind that didn't go away, the kind that made her first paycheck feel smaller than she ever imagined. So she got a job, a safe one with benefits, a steady salary, a 401k she barely understood. Her manager told her to be smart, to stay put, to climb the ladder, but the ladder wasn't going anywhere. Because here's the secret. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed to. It teaches obedience, not independence. It teaches discipline, not financial intelligence. It doesn't teach students how to own businesses, only how to work for them. It produces employees, not entrepreneurs. Maya thought she was playing the game the right way. She didn't realize the game was rigged. The valet stepped forward before the car even rolled to a stop, ready to open the door. A crowd of people gathered outside the upscale restaurant, eyes darting toward the sleek black Lamborghini as it glided into place. The door lifted, scissor style, and out stepped Darren King, NBA All-Star, two-time champion, and the kind of rich most people dream about. He had it all. The cars, the watches, the million-dollar mansion that could swallow a football field whole. Inside, he ordered the best steak on the menu, didn't check the price, didn't care. The night was just another flex, another proof of success. But what no one saw was the other side of his reality. The agents who fielded calls from creditors, the accountant trying to patch holes in a sinking financial ship, the debt piling up faster than the wins on his stat sheet. Darren earned $10 million a year, but he was one bad season away from bankruptcy. Because here's the truth. Making more money doesn't make you rich. Keeping it does. Across town, in a quiet neighborhood, an older man parked his used Toyota in front of a modest single-story home. No paparazzi, no luxury cars. Just a simple driveway, a well-kept lawn, and a man in his late 60s carrying a plastic grocery bag inside. His name was James Carter. No one recognized him. No one knew his net worth was north of $25 million. James had never owned a Rolex, never leased a sports car, never bought a home with more rooms than he could count. He had spent his life doing the one thing Darren never did, living below his means. It wasn't exciting. No one stopped to stare when he walked into a restaurant, but while Darren's millions burned like dry grass in a wildfire, James's wealth grew year after year in the quietest way possible. The illusion of success is the reason so many high earners go broke. The moment someone starts making more money, they start spending more. The apartment isn't nice enough. The car isn't fast enough. The watch isn't expensive enough. The finish line moves, because that's how the system is built. Marketing doesn't sell products, it sells dreams. The dream of looking successful, of feeling powerful, of proving to the world that you made it. It's why millions of people drive luxury cars but can't afford an unexpected expense. It's why athletes sign contracts worth tens of millions but end up broke before they turn 40. They don't buy wealth, they buy the image of it. Darren believed that's what success was. James knew better. Because real wealth isn't flashy. It doesn't show up in Instagram posts or get parked in front of nightclubs. It looks boring. It looks like driving a car you own outright. It looks like investing instead of spending. It looks like a simple house, a diversified portfolio, and a life free from financial stress. It's why Darren will spend his retirement fighting off bankruptcy, and James will spend his doing whatever he wants. The alarm clock buzzed at 6 a.m. and Kevin rolled out of bed, rubbing his eyes. Another Monday, another week of grinding for a paycheck that never seemed to last long enough. He had a decent job, a steady income, but nothing ever changed. The bills always came faster than the raises. Every month money slipped through his fingers like sand. Meanwhile, across the city, Marcus woke up at the same time, but not to an alarm. His investments had already made him money while he slept. Rent checks from tenants had hit his account overnight. His stocks had gained value before he even opened his eyes. Marcus didn't work for money. Money worked for him. This was the difference. One man traded time for a paycheck. The other built assets that paid him forever. Kevin had spent his whole life chasing income. More hours, better salaries, side hustles. But income alone is like a hamster wheel. No matter how fast you run, you're still stuck in place, because income is fragile. It disappears the moment you stop working. Assets, on the other hand, keep producing. Marcus understood this early. The rich don't focus on earning more, they focus on owning more. There are only three real paths to wealth. Entrepreneurship. Owning a business means you control the flow of money. You're not limited by a salary. Investing stocks, real estate and other assets grow over time, compounding in value. Ownership. Whether it's equity in companies, properties or intellectual property, ownership means money continues to flow long after the work is done. Kevin never thought about these things. He had been taught to work harder, not to build smarter. But Marcus, he didn't chase income, he chased ownership. It started small, a tiny rental property, a few $100s invested each month, nothing flashy, just consistency. At first it was slow, wealth always is. The first rent check barely covered expenses. The stock portfolio looked unimpressive, but Marcus knew something Kevin didn't. Wealth isn't built in months, it's built over decades, because wealth grows like a snowball, small at first, almost invisible, but then momentum kicks in. The first property paid for the second paid for the third. Stocks that seemed insignificant at first doubled, tripled, then quadrupled in value. And then something magical happened. Marcus stopped needing to work, the money kept coming, whether he got out of bed or not, whether he answered emails or took a month off. His assets did the work for him. Meanwhile, Kevin was still running, still chasing promotions, still counting down the days until retirement, because that's what the system teaches. It doesn't teach leverage, it teaches labor. The rich don't live like that. They don't trade hours for dollars. They build machines that print money while they sleep. And the only way to escape the hamster wheel, start building the machine. The rain hit the pavement in soft, rhythmic taps as Kevin sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel. The dashboard clock glowed. 11:52 p.m. Another late shift. Another night spent trading exhaustion for just enough money to stay afloat. He exhaled, his breath fogging the windshield. His reflection stared back at him, tired eyes and a furrowed brow. Something had to change. Kevin had spent his whole life playing by the rules, work hard, earn more, save a little. But now he saw the truth. He wasn't playing the game, he was being played by it. Step 1. Shift your mindset. He opened his phone and scrolled through old bank statements. The numbers told the same story they always had. Money came in, money went out. No matter how much he made, the result was always the same. But then something clicked. If spending his whole life working for money hadn't built wealth, then maybe wealth wasn't about working harder at all. Kevin stopped seeing money as a paycheck. He started seeing it as a tool. So he stopped chasing quick wins. No more impulsive purchases to feel momentarily successful. No more mindless spending just because he deserved it. Every dollar needed a purpose now, because wealth wasn't about what he earned. It was about what he kept. Step 2. Financial literacy and education. Kevin had never read a book about money before. He assumed it was all common sense. Save more, spend less. But what he didn't know was costing him thousands. Late nights that used to be spent watching TV were now spent devouring books, on investing, on business, on how the wealthy actually made their money. He listened to investors speak, watched lectures, read case studies, and suddenly it all made sense. The rich weren't playing the same game. They weren't saving their way to wealth. They weren't grinding for promotions. They were leveraging systems, assets, compounding growth, ownership. Kevin had spent years believing that wealth was earned. Now he understood that it was built. Step 3, take action. The first step wasn't glamorous. He cancelled subscriptions, sold things he didn't need, and cut back on expenses that had been draining him for years. Nothing exciting, just discipline. But here's the thing about small changes. They add up. The extra money, It didn't go toward a vacation. It didn't go toward new shoes. It went into investments. It felt slow at first. A couple of $100 here, a few shares of stock there. But then it started growing. For the first time, Kevin wasn't just working for money. Money was working for him. Step 4, build wealth intentionally. The old Kevin had a paycheck-to-paycheck mentality. The new Kevin had a plan. He automated his savings so he wouldn't even think about spending it. He set clear goals, how much he wanted to invest, how much passive income he needed before he could walk away from the rat race forever. And month after month, he watched the numbers rise. The first $1,000 invested, then $5,000, then $10,000. The wealth snowball had started rolling, and this time there was no stopping it. Final thought. Years later, Kevin pulled into the same parking lot where he used to work late shifts. But now, he wasn't here to clock in. He was here to meet an old friend. As he stepped out of his car, nothing flashy, just something he owned outright, he saw Marcus waiting for him. The man who had once been light years ahead of him financially, now his equal. Because Kevin wasn't in the rat race anymore. He had learned the game. He had escaped. Wealth isn't about luck. It's about understanding the rules. And now he had them.